Populist parties are on the rise in Europe. Political and academic elites claim that this must be because of misinformation, ignorance, racism, but is it possible that these elites missed a much more obvious explanation? One of the oldest theories in political science. Let's start at the beach. I have a quiz. Imagine a cove, cliffs on both sides, a boardwalk between. There's 2 ice cream shops. Where will they locate? You probably think they would locate like this, where each stakes out a territory on one side of the beach. That is certainly the most efficient setup to minimize the walking distance to the stands. But notice, if shop 1 moves just a little to the right, it still holds on to all its beachgoers, but it grabs some of the beachgoers to the right. Shop 2 is forced to retaliate and move a little to its left. Game theory suggests the shops will keep doing this until they're right next to each other at the center. This is Hotelling's law. It explains why competing businesses might locate near each other and why competing products might be strikingly similar, as is the case with the interior of coffee shops and Airbnbs and the exterior of cars and Instagram models. They're trying to appeal to the most people possible. All right, enough of this. So businesses will cluster and products will converge. Would we expect politicians to be any different? There's a version of Hotelling's law called the median voter theorem. Here's how it goes. Let's say we have 5 citizens in our town, and our enlightened township has agreed Legos are a basic human right. But we disagree on the amount of sets we think the government should provide. We range in thinking it should be 1 set to 10 sets. Candidates may start at the extremes, but they realize if they shift toward the middle, they can keep all their existing voters and maybe steal some from the other candidate. Eventually, they'll end up near the median voter to capture as many votes as possible. Now, for this theorem to hold, we need a lot of assumptions. There needs to be just 2 candidates and 1 policy that matters. And we need voters to be informed about the politicians' platforms and for politicians to only care about getting elected and not have deeply held beliefs. Obviously, these assumptions differ in how true they might be in real life. So there have been many studies debunking the median voter theorem, showing why it doesn't fit the data in real life. For instance, in the US, candidates have to appeal to the median voter within the party to win the primary. Positions that are popular in the party might be far from the median voter in the population. This explains why after winning the primary, candidates often tack toward the middle or try to disavow things they said in the primary battle. Also, many citizens may view politics more about being part of a tribe or attracted to a politician's personality than actually implementing coherent policy. So the median voter theorem is just another abstract, oversimplified model that doesn't reflect reality in the slightest, right? Well, before we discard it completely, let's travel to Europe, a once wild continent teeming with Vikings, explorers, Mel Gibsons, but now is so risk-averse that it's scared of air conditioning. This is a recent paper from Laurenz Guenther. In it, he looks at the attitudes of politicians versus the attitudes of citizens. He finds a huge gap between politicians and their constituents on cultural issues, particularly immigration. Politicians are much more favorable to immigration than the median voter. In many countries, the right and left-wing parties are closer together than the right-wing party is to the median voter. Guenther finds this gap exists for all different subsets of the data. So it's not like the politicians are championing some slice of the electorate. They're out of step with every demographic group, even immigrants. Here's what's crazy. These gaps have existed forever. Now, by forever, I mean 2009. That's when Guenther's data started, but that's still a ways back. And back then, the representation gap didn't matter much. Economic issues were at the forefront of the public's mind, and there was little distance between politicians and citizens on those issues. But in the 2010s and 2020s, Europe absorbs waves of refugees and immigrants. Opposing immigration became an increasingly important issue for the voting public. Now, there is a massive hole near the median voter on an issue they care about. It would be an easy win for politicians to move into this area. Here, I had AI make an ad for them.
What do you think about where we are headed?
That's what I think.
You have opinions on how to get there.
They're very similar to mine.
In a democracy, the people vote on a politician to represent them.
Let me be that politician. I approve this message, as long as you also approve it.
And yet the politicians didn't budge. Why not? Well, to be charitable, maybe it was their deeply held belief that their countries should take in these migrants and poor refugees. But if you allow me to speculate wildly, I suspect the social dynamics of the era were more important. When I worked for a media company in 2016, nothing mattered more than Twitter. It drove the majority of creative decisions. My bosses cared about clicks and views, for sure. But far more important was not getting yelled at on Twitter. I have many ridiculous stories from that era, and I've put a few in the Substack post linked in the description. Now, I'd imagine something similar was playing out in these elite political circles. Being anti-immigration would get them yelled at. It'd be seen as racist, and they would rather be kicked out of office than their social circle. So they didn't budge. Now, whatever the reasons, the lack of movement by the traditional parties creates an opportunity for new parties to step in, like the AfD in Germany, or for existing parties to be taken over and moved right on immigration, like Orban did in Hungary. Now, while the politicians were ignoring their constituents, the academics were ignoring a theorem you learn in Econ 101. They were offering a variety of explanations, except for the median voter theorem. Why? Again, I think social dynamics and groupthink are at play. It's much easier to convince your colleagues that the people are being tricked or are irrational, rather than say, hey, maybe we haven't had a real job in 20 years and are a little out of touch.
No, it's the
Voters.
who are wrong.
But Guenther's work and our simple theorem suggest elites can only ignore the people for so long. In a democracy, the median voter will strike back.